Okay, hey guys. So this is gonna be your Monday video. It's like your what's up for this week video. I'll have to create like a cool intro or something. I'm gonna be like real YouTube stars or something like that. Hopefully it's not only me that finds myself funny. Gosh, I hope not. So what I want to tell you guys about this week. So we've got a couple of different things that we are going to be going over. We will be live on Tuesday. We will have a discussion about Reformation and the Renaissance. I'll provide all of the things you need for notes and everything, and I'll just walk us through. It's not a PowerPoint, but it'll be similar to a PowerPoint, and I'll just go ahead and apologize because it could be a little bit on the boring side. But it's a lot of information that you guys definitely need going forward. So be there for the live video. Thursday, we're going to be doing group work. You will have a web quest, and it'll be pretty straightforward. You guys will be able to work in your groups with that web quest. So you will have groups by Thursday. And hopefully we'll have group meetings by Thursday, Friday. And I'm sorry, I keep saying Tuesday or Thursday because those are the A days, but y'all know what I'm saying. So one thing I do want to go through, so this is something super important, and it's an assignment you guys are going to have. So this is going to be a little bit of a longer Monday video, and I apologize for that, but it can't be helped. So I'm going to run through this with you guys very, very quickly, and that way it's super easy for when you guys get ready. Okay, so I want to talk to you guys really quickly about how to determine the reliability of a source. Now, you guys have probably done this before in your English classes or hopefully in your history classes as well, but it should be pertinent to absolutely everything you do from here on out, because you want to know that a source you're looking for is reliable and it's not some, like mom and pop site that is run by some loon or something like that. So I do want you guys to read through this document that I'm going to post up for you guys. And the way that it's an acronym for a way to remember how to determine the reliability of a source, and the acronym is TRACE. So T is for targeted audience, and I'm not going to read through every single bit of this for you guys. You can read it yourself where you guys are close enough to adults to where y'all can manage it. And this is a targeted, but I'll sum it up, targeted audience for determining appropriate resources. So this says as a writer, but as a student. So as a student, you've got to identify who your targeted audience is. So who are you writing to? In an academic setting, you're going to be writing for a professor or for a teacher. You're going to be writing for me. Now, we're going to do a couple of different writing assignments throughout the year, and I'll give you guys different prompts, and you'll write to different audiences. So it is going to be important that you take that into account. If you are writing to me and it's like a formal paper, you want that to be very formal. You don't use contractions like don't, and ain't, can't. You wouldn't use slang terms like ain't within a formal writing. Now, if you were writing for an informal audience, like your classmates, or when we get into some of these writing projects, you'll write as like newspaper writers or something along those lines, then it's not as formal. And you can use a little bit more slang, and you can have a little bit more fun with how you word it. So identifying who you're writing to is the most important thing you're going to do to start off, and it's going to be important for how you determine your sources. So determine who your target audience is, and determine who the writer of your articles, determine who your author of the article's targeted audience is. There we go. If it is somebody writing a research paper, they're going to professionals. If it's somebody writing a news article, they're going to the mass populace. If it's somebody writing something on like a .org or a .gov, and it could just be like a little blurb about what it is that you're seeing. And I'll show you guys some examples of all of this in just a second. But make sure that you know who the audience is. How are you to know who they are? I'll show you guys a few little tips for figuring that out. All right. R, so trace, T was for target audience, R is for references, resources, and research. I will read this one word for word. Reliable and reputable articles, journals, or texts will always contain citations and or references in the text. It demonstrates that the author has conducted research and is identifying where they obtain their information from. So all reliable sources will have some kind of citation at the bottom of them. A lot of sources that aren't necessarily reliable will also have references. But you can usually tell the difference between the two kinds of references. So just be careful when you're looking at that. If you see the citations, maybe click on one or two of them just to see what's happening there. A is for argument. When examining if a text is a credible source, you should take into consideration the author's argument, perspective, or point of view. So this says to identify if the author is presenting a neutral or objective or a subjective point of view. There are very, very, very few topics that we will cover that are unbiased. If you were going to write a paper on whether smooth peanut butter was better or crunchy peanut butter was better, you would have a biased opinion of some kind. And there are true neutral people who are like, I don't care, just put the peanut butter on a sandwich. But it is a very rare thing. So you need to know what the bias of the people would be. You need to know if they're being objective about it, if they're looking at it and saying, well, peanut butter is good and peanut butter is for all people. So, some people like crunchy peanut butter and are strange, and some people are strange and they like smooth peanut butter. There you have it. If they're subjective, then they have a specific viewpoint already, and they are going to look at the very distinct things that are different between the topics, or something along those lines. You want to know who is funding or sponsoring your research. If it's a .org, it's a nonprofit organization. EDU, educational institutions. These are usually the best to go to. .gov is government sites. .edu and .gov are the best to go to. .org can be good, but there are some nonprofit organizations that will sneak up on you. There is, and I can't remember the name of the site because it's been so long, but when we were in college, there is an article out there for Martin Luther King Jr., and it's it's got the biography of him. The facts of it are perfect, but it's extremely skewed, and it leans toward a specific viewpoint because it was written by somebody who was at one time a huge member of the KKK. So, that's obviously going to have a biased opinion of what's happening. They're not going to paint Martin Luther King Jr. in the best light. So, you've got to be very careful about that. And it was a .org site. We were flabbergasted when we found it. So just, be careful. .com is business or commercial, and .net is a network organization. So, I would almost never use a .com or a .net as your sources. So other questions to consider are, does the author fully develop their ideas in a clear, convincing, organized, and objective manner? Is there any evidence of bias or partiality? And does the author use the most significant and relevant facts, details, quotations, citations, examples, or other information that are appropriate to the development of the text of his or her argument? Okay, so just be aware of what they are trying to say and if they are trying to make an argumentative point. C is for currency. As a researcher, you should be able to identify when a text was published. How current is a text? So it's not currency like, money, it's currency like how, when was it published? Was it published last week? Was it published 3 years ago? History doesn't often change. We are pretty set in stone, so that's fine. But there are some sites that are going to change their viewpoints of certain historic sites. So when it was written is important. And this is such a hot topic issue right now, but it's also like an exceedingly good example, and that's like the Confederate statues and statues of Washington or Jefferson. The Mount Rushmore was put under fire not too long ago. It was in the 4th of July. And those are, there's this discussion right now of, are they relevant? Are they racist? Should we keep them? Should we tear them down? Should we allow the people in each area to decide whether they want them or not? You look at Mississippi, who just changed their state flag. So that's a really important thing, because if you were to look at articles about Confederate statues, say 20 years ago, or even just 10 years ago, it would not be the hot topic and hot button issue that it is right now. But since we're going through a situation where it's being called out, those articles are going, those articles that are written within this year are going to have a different take on that, on Confederate statues, on issues. Now, if it is if it's like a dot, like if you were to go to the website of a battlefield, like Corinth Battlefield in Mississippi, they have a website for their museum. That museum is going to be probably a bit more objective, but it's also going to have a bias, because they are a historic society that is probably going to say, we want the statues. And that's just because they are historic figures and they would like to have them on their battlefields or something like that to display where certain individuals fought. So, you know, just be very aware of the changing climate and how that's going to affect your sources. I mean, I'm only giving historic sources because obviously we're in history class, so I apologize for that. But it's relevant for all your classes. All right, last one. E is for expert authority or authorship. With increasing availability of technology information, information is easily circulated throughout different news and media outlets. Authors of these articles are not always reliable. That's something that you have got to realize. You always, if you are not on a .edu and you are not on a .gov, even if sometimes on an edu, because sometimes professors can, there are a lot of professors these days who are extremely biased and who you do need to be very careful on that. Now, there are studies and other things that will be safe because they're just recording data or facts. But you just need to be very, very careful about what you're reading and knowing who wrote it and what that person and their agenda is. So check out on the sites, is the author listed or identified? Is there background information about the author? What other type of works have they written or published? Are they associated with reputable institutions? So like, okay, I got one. So I don't know if you guys know who Jordan Peterson is. He is a psychologist out of Canada who made this huge, he was huge under fire about a year or two ago. You may know who he is. You may have seen him on YouTube. But he has some very far right-leaning ideas, and whenever you read his works, you have to understand and you have to realize that when you read it, it's coming from that kind of a perspective. And he makes very logical arguments, very good arguments, but there are a lot of people who can step up and rebut everything he says as well. So it's, you know, and he's related back to a university. He's a professor. He's a classically trained professor. He's a very, very intelligent person. But when you read his stuff, if you read his articles, if you see something, you have to realize that you're reading it through that lens. And that doesn't mean it's not a reliable source. That doesn't mean he's not a reputable person. But it is important to know who is writing your, who's writing the article that you are reading. Yeah, we'll stop there. So check out your authors as well. That's going to be super important as well. I will post this in Schoology for you guys to do. There are 3 separate pages for it. I want you guys to find, oh no, I'm sorry. There's only one side. There's 3 pages for one thing, but I'm going to do it in, I want you guys to find 3 different sites. Okay, I want you to find a reliable site, a somewhat reliable site, and a not reliable site. I will let you guys do this in groups, so you can do it Tuesday, Wednesday after class. But what you're going to do is you are going to find some sites. You're going to then answer the questions for each of these. And I've got to hold tight one second, guys. Think we're still recording? Yes. Okay. And hopefully I can edit that out if not. So what I want you guys to do is go through and check out each of the sections for those 3 sites that you find. Who is the targeted audience? Who is the target audience? And is it reliable? Who is referenced? What kind of citations do they use? Are they good? Are they reliable? And then I want you to justify that. So what I want you guys to do is find like a .gov site, and that'll be your reliable site. Then I want you guys to find like maybe a .org or a .com or something like that. That can be your somewhat reliable site. And then find something that is completely and totally unreliable. And you will go through and do a rating for each of these. So targeted audience, who are they writing to? If they're writing as a news corporation, it's going to be somewhat reliable. If they are writing to other professionals or to people in academics, it'll be a super reliable. All right, and then justify your rating. Tell me how, like 1 or 2 sentences for each of these. And you complete each of these boxes. There we find argument and currency and authorship or authority. And so what you go through, and you're going to effectively do this for 3 different sites. I will allow you to have to work in your groups on this, but it is something I want you guys to do before the end of the week. So I'll post all of this up. Okay, I am going to show you guys a few sites that are just kind of an overview of what we've just talked about. So if you need something, if you search up just about anything, it will be in the Encyclopedia Britannica. Pretty much everything is in there. It is a .com, but it is an extremely reliable .com. It's an encyclopedia. All they do is collect information. I'm fairly certain, I've never seen anything on here that's not been pretty reliable. So, I've never seen anything on here that was written from a biased point of view. It was usually just straight recordings of the facts. This is the Encyclopedia of Alabama. It is a .org. It is a nonprofit organization that runs it. You can click on it right there. I can see myself lagging a little bit. Okay, and they have, it's not just limited to Alabama information. It's just about everything. And if you wanted to check it out, you can go down here and you can click on About EOA. It will pull up about them. They are a free online reference resource on Alabama history, culture, geography, and natural environment. Now, yes, it does say Alabama, but there are other things on here than just Alabama. So if anybody was relevant to Alabama, they are on here as well. And it is, let's see, it was developed by the Alabama Humanities Foundation and Auburn University. with generous financial support from across the state. So it is a university-funded encyclopedia. That's important to note. So this is a pretty reliable source because it is funded by a university, but it's also funded by several universities and by the state almost as a whole. I typed in up here into Google, I typed in historic documents. There are two very good sites you can go to for historic documents. You can go to ushistory.org and click on this. All right, so this looks like a pretty sketchy page, right? But it has all of your, let's go to the Star Spangled Banner. It's got all of them linked, and it is just a transcript of the document. All right, so that's extremely reliable. There's no bias there. That is it, and this is funded by it's Independence Hall Association, which is a group up in Philadelphia that was put in by the National Park Service for one of the, I can't remember what it was, but it was some historic restoration or something like that, some national park. But anyway, so it'll be it'll be typed out. It'll be perfectly fine for you to read. There's no bias here. It's just a straight recording. All right. You can also go to America's Historical Documents at archives.gov. The archives, this is the National Archives. So there is no bias here. It is straight recording of facts. If we were to click on the Declaration of Independence, it will show you the Declaration of Independence. You can get it as a PDF. You can zoom in and look at it. You can see the actual document. You can link and read more of the founding documents, and it's going to give you some information about it. It was drafted by Thomas Jefferson, and the Continental Congress adopted it on July 4th, 1776. And then also what it's going to do is it will give you links. So more about the Declaration of Independence at America's Founding Documents, high resolution images of the Declaration, transcript of the Declaration, and add your name to the Declaration of Independence. So that one would be more of like an interactive thing, so you probably won't need it. But if we click on this, it'll take us to another link, and it'll give us other documents. What do they say? What do they mean? The history of the documents. You probably don't want how it was made because you don't want to know how the paper was made. And where can you learn more? So this is a very, very good site for when we get into the Constitution or when we're talking about the big documents of the founding of the United States. So I'll post this in your resources. All right, this is your Civil War site that I recommend this so highly. This is from the American Battlefield Trust. They are a private organization of which I'm a part. So, shameless plug. I would start here for anything you're going to do on the Civil War because they are a private organization, but they are a private organization that is funded by people across the United States. All they are there for is preserving the battlefields. That's it. And they have tons of information about it and all of that. So that's that little plug. Okay, on to this. When you look at news articles, which we will look at news articles, it is very important to understand that news articles will always be biased. There are very, very few news articles that will not be. CNN has a tendency. Now, there are a few sections of CNN that are extremely objective and extremely like the CNN 10s. Okay, his name is Carlos something, but he does a fantastic job, and it's just a recording of facts. But CNN has a tendency to lean to the left. So when you read an article from there, you want to make sure that you keep that in mind. Similarly, Fox News is going to lean to the right. You do have one or two people on there every now and then that have a bit more, that tend to lean in the libertarian style. but most things coming from Fox are going to be very right-wing pushed. Extremes. TYT, this is the Young Turks. I would recommend not using articles from this site. They are extremely left-leaning. That would be, and you can, I don't know if it'll take us to the actual site. I don't know if it'll let us on, because I didn't try it beforehand. Let's see. Oh, well, look at that. Okay, they are, I wonder if you can get to their about page. Let's see if they've got something or if they just do the tile thing. Show archive, about us. So TYT network, about us. And that's not to say that, you know, their articles won't be valid, that they won't have truth to them. I'm just saying, you know, if you end up using an article from this, you need to be very, very careful, and you need to have a very good reason. Well, it's not giving you an about, is it? That is quite odd. Anyway, they post articles. They very rarely post sources to their articles too, though, or like citations. So be careful with TYT. Another one to be very careful of is The Blaze. This is an extremely far right publication. They sometimes post, and this is kind of one of the things, they will post sources from every now and then, but when you go and you check those sources, sometimes they're quite, they're not good sources, they're fringes. So you can use, like I said, with the TYT, you can use these articles. You just need to be extremely, extremely, extremely careful with those, because they are extremely biased one way or the other. Okay, so that is news media and bias. Always make sure to check. There are very few news organizations that are going to be just straight up and down the middle. Okay, so I did a search up here for Martin Luther King Jr. because I wanted to see if I could find that that page from earlier, but I 100% could not do it. Most of the ones on the first page for Martin Luther King Jr. are going to be .orgs, .govs, or .edus. History Channel usually has decent information, but it's usually very boiled down. So, you know, it's here or there. But yeah, like, so you see .orgs, biography.com, but biography.com, you know what they're there for. Britannica.com. So a lot of really reliable sources right on that first page, but, you know, just be careful about them. Another thing I want to talk about is Wikipedia. Wikipedia is your starting point. When I was in, you cannot cite Wikipedia as a source. I know a lot of English teachers are extremely against that, and that's, you know, that's understandable and that's okay. As far as history goes, Wikipedia is, you know, you have got to be. I'm sorry, Wikipedia. I can't. I don't know why you won't go away. Actually, there we go. Maybe later, Wikipedia. You have to have so many edits. You have to do so much on Wikipedia site to be able to edit certain pages. Now, it is a gigantic free-for-all where people have come in and they've just written stuff, but it is an amazing starting off point, because most of the stuff on here is going to be fairly reliable. So if you see something and you're like, man, that's a really good point, or that's a really good fact, I'd like to see it, and you can get down to that citation, you can click down here. It'll take you to the citation page. This is where you can find some other links that will take you to a very reliable source. It'll take you to books, it'll take you to websites, it'll take you to whatever you need. So Wikipedia is a starting point. It is a good place to get other sources from. Don't cite it though. And this is the last thing I wanted to show you guys. This is a project that I've done several different times with my high school students. And it's when you start searching for like very specific things, so like the Civil War economic differences between the North and the South, you're going to get more outlying sources, I guess you could say. Teachinghistory.org. Let's click on this real fast. It's beyond the textbook. Important. Okay, so this is it's a fairly good source, and I did want to talk to you guys about it because it has what the textbooks say, what historians say, and what sources say. So it breaks everything down for you, and it will give you a lot of different areas to go and click in. You can see primary sources. They will show you secondary sources as well. So, you know, that's something that's a really good site, and it'll be a site that you guys can use for other things as well. But when you get into something super specific like this, you tend to end up with more fringe sites. So don't just click on something and not look it through it. Don't just like say, okay, click. Like this, Weebly.com. So we don't know who created this. We don't know anything about the author. We don't know anything about when it was when it was published. We know nothing about it except for the sources, and that's fine. But this is all there is. We don't have anything else but those. So I would not use that as a site. All right. And I know I've kind of gone off on tangents a little bit here. There's battlefields.org. But it is super important for you guys to be able to do this. And I want to go ahead, address it now. I would rather make a really long video and let you guys watch it at your leisure, so that you know now that you have got to be careful about your sources. So when you do that project, the assignments over here that you guys are going to be doing as groups, you cannot use any of the sites I just showed you. Find some different sites. I would look up, I'll give you guys each a topic. How about that? And that way it makes it a whole lot easier for you. So I'll give you each a topic, just a random one, and you guys can look it up and go from there. And I'll whenever I post this as an assignment, I will give you and your group your topic then. All right. So that is our what's going on this Monday video, or what's going on this week Monday video. There we go. I don't have any announcements for you right now, other than to just make sure you are at our live session either on Tuesday or Wednesday. That should be it. All right. So sorry again for the really long video this time around. But it had to be done. Not all of our Monday videos are going to be this long, I promise. But we just, we got to get this knocked out of the way. All right. So you guys have a great afternoon. I will see you all either tomorrow or Wednesday for our live class. Bye, guys.